Hello, Dennis Wilkins here at Studio 12 Below. In my two-part article in the May and June 2017 issues of Sound on Sound magazine, I describe many features of this extensive program, but Band in a Box is so comprehensive that even a long review can't cover all its functions. At the end of the article, I briefly listed a number of additional operations that a user might find useful. One of these is the Vocal Wizard, a tool that can help determine the best key for a song based on a vocalist's pitch range. Here's the Band in a Box 2017 desktop in the classic view. I'll open up a chord progression that I previously entered using a MIDI keyboard. You can see the chord progression here in the chord sheet. And up in the key window, you can see it's in the key of E minor. In the tempo window, you can see it's 75 beats per minute, and the time signature is 12/8 time. This chord progression is from the traditional folk song House of the Rising Sun. The lyrics were first published in 1925, and the earliest recording was made in 1933. This song has been covered by just about every band in the world, and the singer that I'm working with agreed we should try a cover of it too. Of course, Band in a Box is mainly known as a music arranger and composer program, and I started off by creating over 24 versions in many different styles from rock and roll to blues to country western. I sent a number of versions to my colleague in Sweden, Sina Jacobson, and she liked the bluesy 12/8 version, which is the one I have here. You can see in the upper right in the track panel that the backing tracks are green. This means they're real tracks. And the melody track is in yellow, which means it's a MIDI track. The melody track is MIDI because, of course, it was recorded using a MIDI keyboard. But there's another reason to use MIDI in the melody track. The Vocal Wizard needs notation, which means having MIDI data, in order for it to provide an analysis. You normally create melody tracks using MIDI. Even the melodist creates MIDI parts. But if you do use real tracks, many of these include notation, which is called real charts. Actually, the Vocal Wizard can use MIDI data from either the melody track or the soloist track for analysis, so you have some flexibility. But if you try to use the Vocal Wizard without notation, you'll find it won't provide a suggestion. Let's take a listen to these first few bars. You can hear the melody playing as a piano part. To use the Vocal Wizard, you need to also input the vocalist pitch range. If you already know the vocalist range, you're ready to run the vocalist wizard. But if you don't know the vocalist pitch range, there are several ways to determine it, such as having the singer check their voice against a piano or an electronic keyboard. But years ago, I noticed that most guitar tuners can directly measure vocal pitch, and the tuner in Band in a Box is no exception. Let's look at the tuner, which is found in the upper menu bar in the Windows menu right here. As you can see, it analyzes the audio input to Band in a Box in real time. If the singer's with you, they can simply sing sounds from their lowest comfortable pitch to their highest, and you can read the resulting note range directly. In this project, my vocalist Sina is 5,000 miles, that's 8,000 kilometers away, so I analyzed her voice using some tracks I had from a previous project. I did this by importing a file into the audio track of Band in a Box and playing it through my audio interface. I won't try to describe how I routed the audio, since the exact configuration would vary depending on your system, and if you have a studio, you no doubt have a way to do this if needed. Let's look at this process in case you want to use it. Select File, Import, Import Audio. Here we see a file called Vocal Range 4, which I'll open. This opens a window which allows you to place the audio file at any measure in Band in a Box. Note that Band in a Box defaults to inserting the track at bar -1 to allow for a lead-in measure, but I'll insert it at bar 2 for a reason I'll show in a moment. Band in a Box also allows you to convert stereo files to mono or vice versa. I'm just going to leave this as mono. You can see an audio track is now placed in the track panel, and since we only want to analyze the vocal, I'll solo the audio track. Notice when I hit play, though, the Guitar Tuner title bar indicates audio input is inactive. This is because you have to focus on the tuner to make it active by clicking in the title bar. This is why I inserted the vocal at bar 2, to give me time to activate the tuner. So let's try the analysis again. I'll click on the guitar tuner to activate it, and here we go. As you can see, this analysis shows the normal pitch range runs from B4 to D6. Falsetto notes, if used, need to be checked out separately. Now that we're through with the tuner, we can close it. We can unsolo the audio track. In fact, we can erase it entirely since we don't need the vocal sample anymore. Go to Audio in the top menu bar, then Edit Audio, and kill Entire Audio. This will prevent us from accidentally merging other audio later. Now we're ready to use the Vocal Wizard, which is in the Windows menu of the upper menu bar. Under Lyrics, then Vocal Wizard. This opens an analysis, but I haven't yet entered the singer's range, so this analysis is not correct for our song and singer. You can see the table includes information for all 12 keys. Let's enter our vocalist range. We enter the low note, which was B4 here, and we enter the high note, which was D6 in this box. If falsetto notes are appropriate for the song and the singer, you can enter the high falsetto note in this box and the percent of time that falsetto is acceptable here. When the vocal range is entered, we see the table in the Vocal Wizard updates with information for all 12 keys. The current key is indicated, and down the left side we see scores for each key. It turns out the lower the score, the better that key fits the singer's range. You can see the best key is indicated with a score of 5 as A flat minor. And you can also see G minor and G flat minor are acceptable with scores of 6 and 7. Other keys would require notes too low or too high for our vocalist range. There's a transpose button right in the Vocal Wizard that will transpose the song to the highlighted key. However, if you look in the track panel, I still have tracks frozen. In Band in a Box, frozen MIDI tracks will transpose, but frozen real tracks will not. So we better unfreeze those using the freeze button and the unfreeze command. And now we can go to the key window and transpose to our best key of A flat minor right here. We see the chord sheet updates to the new chord progression, and we're ready to play the song in this new key. When you transpose real tracks, they're also regenerated, so it takes a little longer for it to start playing. Key transposition in Band in a Box is one of its really useful features. And as we've seen, you can transpose not only MIDI tracks, but also real tracks. Just keep in mind that real tracks will also be regenerated when they're transposed. Band in a Box can also transpose the audio track and user tracks, and it does a pretty good job for a few semitones. We'll take a listen to this in a moment. I sent this version to my singer, and several days later she returned several vocal takes. Let's hear one of these vocal tracks played along with this version. We can do this by using the import function that we saw earlier. In Files, Import, Import Audio. Here's the vocal file. I'll open it and a window pops up wanting to place it at -1 measures. I'll make that 1 since that's the way Sina timed her singing. It's a stereo file, so we'll leave it stereo. And we see it here in the track panel, so we're ready to go. The melody track is still playing the piano, which we use for the Vocal Wizard, but since we have a real singer, we can turn that off.
There is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor girl. And God, I know I'm one. Oh.
As mentioned earlier, we can transpose the entire song including the audio track, so let's give that a try. Let's transpose our A-flat minor version to a B-flat minor. We see a window pops up that asks if we want to transpose the audio track, and of course we do. Again, it takes a moment for the real tracks to regenerate.
There is a house in New Orleans. They call the rising sun.
And we can transpose it the other direction, say down to F minor. Again, it takes a moment because transposing the real tracks requires some regeneration.
There is a house in New Orleans. They call the rising sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor girl. And God, I know I'm one.
Not too bad. Just make sure your vocalist is okay with you messing around with their vocals. So an entire production can be created using just Band in a Box. But my normal way of working is to use Band in a Box to stimulate musical ideas, to create mock-ups for specific instrument performances, and sometimes to produce final tracks using real tracks or even MIDI, and then to export those tracks to my DAW. There are several ways to export Band in a Box tracks, and there are a few video tutorials on the PG Music site that show how to use the drag and drop method. I use both this method and sometimes the original export methods found in the audio menu item in the upper menu bar, and then you can choose render, or the dot wave button in the main toolbar for audio, which provides several choices, or the dot mid button in the main toolbar for MIDI. These tools let you quickly send audio or MIDI of each Band in a Box track to a folder for subsequent use in a DAW, or even directly drop them into your DAW tracks. I'll share some very handy techniques using exported Band in a Box tracks in another video soon.